Hey, Snowboard Addiction, Tavis here, and in this video, we're going to be doing 50-50 back ones. And back ones on, we're going to start this video with a little bit of a different format. We're going to go and watch some actual snowboarding, and then we're going to go and try implement what we learned from that video into the training we do today. So the main trick we're doing is the 50-50 back one. So that is this trick. And there's going to be a couple key things that we notice here. First of all, I'm doing it toe side. Heel side or toe side both work really well for the 50-50 back one. I honestly think that heel side works a little bit better for this trick because it makes it so your chest is slightly more open towards the rail. Will give you more range of motion to close off and snap. Because the thing I want you to notice here is this is a very short rail, so that means the motions are going to be a lot quicker. You don't need to be as patient with your movements. You're sort of able to get away with a lot more. But I'm still trying to hit the feature completely squared. Landing squared, so not preemptively rotating here, waiting to getting all the way on the rail when still maintaining that stack position. That's really important for any trick you're trying to spin out of a feature, is you don't want to compromise your form when actually getting onto it. So you need to make sure you land in your stacked position. The other thing here, this is because it's a bit of an up rail. You can see that I'm keeping myself a lot more bent to absorb the impact. So I have my standard get on point. And instead of going and trying to reach onto a rail, because I know I'm going fast, it's going to kick me, I keep my legs a little bit soft. So then the impact just shifts them and sort of bunches it up. And that's why this bend in the legs is such a useful thing, because it's not only for catching the rail, but it's also for absorbing the rail. So let's be mindful about how much we're extending our legs today. Obviously, we need to go and pop and actually generate power because we're jumping onto our balance bar. And the last thing is the timing. So the reason why I was saying the heel side's a little bit better is because you can get onto the rail with your chest slightly open. So then your timing can be over a larger duration of time as you're closing off to the rail. Where here, I'm landing completely straight to the rail. So it makes it so I only have a small range of motion I can do before my vision would be lost on the rail. So to remify this, I go and make sure that when I take off, my spot is forward towards the landing. And that's something a lot of people don't go and do on the back ones, is they'll go and rotate their head and just be looking back up to the middle of the rail. But what you want to be doing is looking ahead of you to where you land. So here, if I was going really slow, I'd be spotting the front of the rail because I'd be landing around here. So that'd be a good spot. But because I'm going faster here, my spot point is more at the knuckle. So I'm locking it down at that point, and then I'm doing the constant spot and then digging in the toes. So this is going to vary with how much speed you have. But an important thing to remember is you're never going to be wanting to spot this part of the rail halfway through all the way to the end. Instead, you're going to want to have your spot at the end of a rail. So even if you're just crawling off a feature as slow as you could do, you want to make sure that you're not rotating your upper body to a point where you lose vision with the end of the rail. If your vision starts looking back at the center of a rail, back at the takeoff of a rail, that means you preemptively rotated your upper body too much. And that's just going to cause too much of a disconnect with your torso and upper body. So that's the challenge of the 50-50 back one. And that's keeping your form strong enough, but still getting that rotation with the upper body without throwing the spin. Then not overdoing it so that you go and lose your constant spot. So the key to doing this is making sure you're letting your upper body rotate while you keep your head a little bit less rotated. So if you're rotating your upper body around 17 degrees, you're rotating your head around 45 degrees. And that way your arms are still leading, but your head's there, so you can still utilize that counter rotation. Because we only want to rotate 90 off the jump because we're not trying to snap the spin at all. And then from there, we're relying on that counter rotation. So even on a 50-50 back one where I'm going this big, I'm still doing it all with counter rotation. And that's just because it helps you land the trick. It's what you want to be doing, because if you don't have rotation being channeled going off the feature, it's going to make it so you can only really generate rotation with that counter rotation. And there's ways you can get around this, but not many. The next one we're going to look at is front one, slack one. So same thing if it's for cab one, back one. But this will be utilizing continued rotation. So coming up, getting into that front one, and an important thing here when you're continuing your rotation, you want to have your chest not fully squared off. because again, that increases the amount of time you have for range of motion that you can go and channel. So here you can see again, my upper body is rotated around 70 degrees, but my head is rotated around 45. And that's just going to let you go and keep your spot at the same place. This one, my spot and everything wasn't quite right, and that's why we're getting that like slight drift and not full rotation with that little bit of a break up erased. But that's the two ways we can go and do a back one out, with counter rotation and the continued rotation. But even with a continued rotation for a back one, you're going to be relying on counter rotation. Any questions about those two tricks before we get going?
On the last one, you said your spot wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
Are you looking, you didn't look downhill far enough? You were looking at the rail still?
Yeah, let's go and pull it
I
up.
couldn't quite see. Yeah, I was trying to see where that was, but.
All right. Here, 1 second. All right. So my spot wasn't quite right because I was spotting sort of like forward in front. So see how my spot is sort of angled to the left of the rail? That's just making it so when I land here, I'm needing to shift my spot to the correct position last second, but my body weight and momentum is wrong. So if I had my spot back over here, more to the right of the feature, then when I landed, I would have been more lined up and had this momentum. Because what's really throwing me off here is the slight bit of drift I have going across the rail. So you get on the rail and then you're going and drifting slightly across and your momentum's carrying you. So that's making it so my momentum is actually slightly angled. So I would have needed to rotate like a 190 to be on the proper angle to match my momentum, or I would have needed to be more stacked. So here, my upper body's in the right position, my legs are in the right position, but my momentum is still sending me backwards. So that's causing my board to do that little bit of scuff, and that's what's making me need to catch myself and roll over. So that's just coming from thinking that my center, my point, my constant spot point is right, should be right here, but then it should have been back over this way with my momentum. So just a little bit of wrong placement for the head positioning for the constant spot.
Gotcha. Do you think if that was a longer feature, like if you had more time before the front one on, that would have, would you absorb the drift, I guess, while riding the rail longer, you think? Or is that like a product because of the rail so short?
I think the main issue with this is I rotated my upper body a little bit too soon here. So see how I landed like this, and then instantly I was in this position. So it was just a little bit early. I went and popped up with my board still coming up. So it was just slightly early. That has to do with me like being on the rail switch. I'm not as comfortable switch on the rail, so I wouldn't make that mistake as much on like a cab one on. But here, I just let my upper body close off a little bit early. That blocked my vision and blocked my spot point, making it so I had to pop up my board early, and that made it so I didn't give a clean pop off the rail, and I got that little bit of drift.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Any other questions before we get into this?
Looks good.
Awesome. Let's get into it. So we're just going to start with a little bit of warm up on the jib board. My hip's still pretty injured, so I'm going to try keep jumping to limited. So focusing on good form versus multiple reps. But obviously, it's your training. Do as many reps as you want to do. I just have to be mindful of this injury because I'm trying to get it good. Hopefully going to be doing a Japan airbag trip in a month here. So trying to prioritize healing a little bit.
There you go. Did you figure out what you're doing for that yet?
I'm getting there. Very close. Okay. It's tough to do without a car, but I think I'm going to go ride like one of the new airbags and just take taxis and hopefully make some friends that I can carpool with when I'm down there.
There you go. You get on hill, they see what you're throwing, they're like, hey man, you can ride with us.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. All right, so the first thing we're going to be mindful of is keeping a nice bit of bend in your legs and landing onto the rail completely stacked, not worrying about the back one yet. That one I leaned forward a little bit, so let's go and do another one. Just trying to get a clean 50-50 because you don't want to be drifting one way or the other on the rail. So I'm just going to do one more. Stacked. And then from the stack position, I just want to go and feel it on the rail a little bit. Keeping my eyes forward, just try close your upper body over your back foot with your head still facing forward, looking at the tip of your snowboard a little bit. So trying to get this weird close motion if your head's still looking forward, because that's going to let you get in there and then keep the spot as you rotate around. So we're going to combine that with the 50-50 now. So jumping on and then just rotate, and then we'll just pop off. If you want to go straight into the back one, you can, but I'm just going to get comfortable with the motion, rotate, pop off. One more, pop on, rotate, pop off.
It
All
feels
right.
really hard to do that and not let my head drift with my shoulders.
Yeah, it's really hard to disconnect the head from the upper body. That's why we're trying to practice that motion a little bit. The only way you can do it is if you keep your spot underneath your arm. So to do that, you want to add a little bit of bend in your legs because that's going to help you keep your weight squared. And that's going to help you keep your spot under your arm because your arm's closer. If you're too tall straight up and you're trying to spot under your arm, it's not going to really work. So we want to go and keep that stack position sort of like this. Arms out and then keeping that spot under the arm. Yeah. And obviously, if you can't go and you're like, oh, I can't, I'm losing my thing, my head's losing position. Maybe you're going and rotating your upper body a little bit too much, or maybe you're trying to keep your head too straight. It's a very fine line. We want to be spotting that, but we don't need to be spotting it we don't need to be like this. That's over exaggerated. Instead, it can be something really subtle like this. So find a range of motion that works for you and is effective. Because the larger range of motion you have, the more forgiving it is for timing because you have a more range of motion to play with off the takeoff. But it's not necessary because you can go and do it with a smaller range of motion. Your timing will just have to be more precise. So since I've been training my hips and everything for so long, I have a really large range of motion I can play with, but that's something that takes time to develop. So if you're feeling uncomfortable with your range of motion, it doesn't feel natural, narrow it in and get to a range of motion that you're comfortable doing. Yeah, you can also try it with a backside 50-50. We'll just pop over quick because a backside 50-50, when you pop up, you're going to be landing with your chest sort of open like this. And when your chest is open like this, that makes it so your range of motion is longer because you're starting with a forward-facing position. So when you close off, you're going 90, then your normal range of motion that you have from the toe side. So that's why it's easier. So we'll go and give that a couple tries. So nice bend of the legs, pop up squared, and then rotate closing, pop down. I'm going to do it, switch a little bit, practice up, pop up, rotate, come back, pop down. This stuff is really good to train with just the body motions because we can do it more. And this is the range of motion that we need to actually do the tricks. Because the back one, once you combine this motion, actually comes really naturally. I'm going to just do some switch backside 50-50s with that, and then we'll get into our back ones out. It's very important when you're doing these to make sure that you're not rotating over your front nose, putting pressure on it, just because that'll make it so when you pop off the end, you won't have as much of your board to utilize. So one more of these. All right. I'm ready to get spinning. So for this, we're just going to start and focus on keeping our body motion. Don't worry about the constant spot and looking at the end of a rail too much because the constant spot only works that way when you're traveling up and past it. So here our spot can just be right in front of you. It doesn't really matter as much. So instead, just focus on that bend of the legs and trying to get the fluent motion. So just popping up. And just trying to make this as effortless as possible.
Hello, I'm late.
What's
No
up?
worries. We're just getting going on our backside 180s.
Tavis,
Trying
did
to
you
get-
lose your shirt?
I didn't bring a shirt. I only brought a fleece, and the boys have said I didn't need to suffer that kind of torture today.
All right, all right.
Yeah, this is our premium OnlyFans Zoom snowboard workout. We're trying to up the engagement.
Right on, right on. The female engagement, you mean?
Yeah,
Or the male.
working on it.
We get
Uh,
20 people next week. You know what happened.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
exactly. Yeah, we
We'll
hit
see Nev
100
out.
people and I'll get some booty shorts.
We'll see Nev out there topless and it'll drop back down. Don't worry.
I don't know, man's been surfing hard.
He has.
He's gonna be jacked. Nice. Well, I'll check out a couple of your guys' back ones here and see if there's anything I can notice. One more, Ben. Yeah, that's pretty good. You might be holding your head a little bit straighter than you need to. You might be able to keep it a little more connected with your upper body, but that was a good overextended motion. So that worked. That looked pretty good. Yeah, I think that's super solid. What I want to see from you, Ben, is try to do it with a little bit more bend in your legs and a little bit more just like, yeah, just a little more bend in the legs. Yeah. It's actually really nice when you're doing like your 50-50 back ones, especially when you're learning them, to have a bunch of bend in your legs because, you know, in your head, you're like, oh, I'm going to jump out the end of a rail. But a lot of time the rail's coming fast and you're mostly just going to slide off the end, especially if it's like a cannon rail. You're going to want to start with bending your legs and just focusing on rotating the upper body and counter rotation instead of trying to get a full pop, because a full pop means you need full contact with the rail. And it's going to make it a harder motion. So it's easier to start with more bend in your legs. And then when you take off a rail and are rotating, because you have more bend in your legs, it'll give you more range of motion to use counter rotation and get it around. So it's useful to go and get used to this motion with a little bit more bend in your legs than you'd originally think.
Okay.
Nice. Nice, Dean. Just hold the blind landing a little bit longer. Even though we're just practicing, we want to get in the habit of we're fully spotting that blind landing into our rotation. Momentum is completely killed. Nice. Ooh, Janet, I got something fun for you to try. You missed the first portion, but basically what we're trying to do is figure out how to do these rotations without any wind up. So right now, when you're getting on the rail, you're getting on stacked, winding up, and then snapping. When you're on a rail, if you try to go and initiate a wind up when you're on it, it's going to go and throw you off balance and put you into a board slide. So we need to get onto the rail in our maximum wound up position. So once you're on the rail, all you can do is close. You can't actually wind up, but you don't actually need to land fully lined up. You're thinking you just need to throw it more like a spin, but really all you need to do is land stacked and then let your upper body rotate 70 as your head rotates around 40, keeping your spot forward, and that will give you plenty of rotational power. I'll go and demonstrate this for you really quick. So all I need to do is land completely squared, head forward, let my upper body rotate, and then I can use counter rotation to get down. So we want to actually do it this way, super lazy and floppy, because that's going to be more accurate to what we're doing on an actual snowboard.
Okay.
Yoop. So Janet, try not to land with your arms forward, just land in your stacked position.
Okay.
Yeah. Closer. You're still going up. Right now, right now, Janet, you're landing like this. Right? You're ready for a big spin. What happens if you do this is you're off balance and swayed. So then when you try to generate your spin, it's going to be in-kiltered. So instead of landing with your chest open towards the end, just try to land completely stacked, square, shoulders in line with the snowboard.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Landing stacked off the feature.
Yeah. Stacked. And then I want you to add a disconnect. So instead of going and rotating everything at the same time, let your upper body rotate first, letting your upper body lead the rotation. So don't even throw this as a spin. What I want you to do is land stacked, close 90, And from this position, then jump your 180 out. So not relying on your upper body to rotate at all, instead doing preemptive rotation. I'll demonstrate it. Switch 2, landing stacked, rotate 90, pop up, counter rotate it all the rest of the way. Yeah.
Okay.
Delay it even longer. Both are looking good, but I want you to delay this motion until you're completely in a standstill in that closed position, then pop this trick. Nice. I can't see your head positioning, so no comment on that, but that's what you want to be doing, that separation of getting on the rail stacked and then letting your upper body close off and then using counter rotation to catch up.
Okay.
Ooh. All right.
That's so
Right.
weird.
The last thing we're going to do is the continued rotation 180s. So for this, we're going to just do either cab one or front one on and land with our upper body a little bit forward facing like this, and then continue rotation into that at rotated with your head forward, popping up all the way just all the way around, back one out. We won't focus on back ones on because that's a really tough trick that we just don't need to beef with right now. Oh man. All right. I'm going to just do one more really clean because my hip's hurting a bit. So rotating using counter rotation. Oh, rotating and rotate using counter rotation. Front one, landing chest open, rotate the upper body, finish the spin. Yoop. Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. Yeah, so remember, first thing first, you need to get the front one. It doesn't matter what happens later on the trick as much. So just focus in, trying to get into a good front one position. It's going to be hard with the white piece for sure.
I know. I'm trying to do too much.
Yeah, that's a little too much. Dean, I think you'd really benefit by having a bit more bend in your legs. Right now, you're landing pretty straight bodied, back tall, legs pretty straight. I want you to be landing with more, here, I'll show you. Right now, you're landing sort of like this, tall, you're technically in the right position on your feet, but you don't have any like re-way. So if you get like swaying off a rail, it's going to really buck you out. So what I want you to do is exaggerate the bend in your legs. So bend a little more for takeoff, land, and land with your legs more bent. What's going to put your torso over top with your butt out a bit, and that's just going to be a more stable position. A little more bend in the legs would just give you more flexibility. It's tricky.
Ooh. Ooh.
That was already better. You can get a little bit lower, but that one, your torso was actually hinged. We're not trying to be in a completely straight line. We're just trying to have our weight set in the constant spot. A straight line, that's making you taller. That makes it so you're more dramatic where you're going lean. But this position, that makes it so you can disconnect your hips and your upper body. So that's like a big difference. If you're super straight and tall, when you lean, you're going to be leaning off your whole body because you can't really go and like shoot out your hips too much. But if you're in this position, even if your chest is open, then you can go and balance with just micro legs. Think about like surfers like coming in for a big backside turn or down low to your board because that lets them get extension, tall, and it just gives you more range of motion to play with. So starting with a little bit of a more initial bend is nice. On the training products, it makes it more tiring because you need to be like doing your tricks in a constant squat almost because you're not getting that full extension. And it's one of those things that's tricky, but getting used to landing and thinking about your back hinging forward, like not breaking at the waist, but hinging with your hips as you go down. So going from this position to this position is going to be way more stable for a lot of tricks. We don't want to do it too much, obviously. If we're going like this, we're going to be at risk of tacoing, but it's that fine line. And you know you hit it if your pressure point on the balls of your feet stays the same. So you can bend down as much as you want as long as your pressure remains on the balls of your feet. Yeah, nice, Dean. That was a good amount of bend. Nice, Ben. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, Ben, that's exactly it. That's going to be a really powerful platform to do the tricks off of. Nice. Right on. Nice, Janet. All right, with that, I think I'm going to end the recording, but we'll stay in. I think we're going to look at some of Dean's snowboarding footage, see what we can notice on some of his carving, and we can keep training after this. I just have to upload this off Zoom, so a 30-minute video would take forever. So we're going to end the recording. For anyone watching this, we do these live sessions every second Sunday. It alternates between me and Nev Lapwood, the Snowboard Addiction guy. If you want to come join the live stream, go subscribe to Addiction Plus, and that way you can come train with us. It will also give you access to our other tools. We have like video analysis where you can submit videos of your riding and we'll break it down. Basically, Addiction Plus is Snowboard Addiction's way to like get in contact with people and help better the snowboarding in our community and narrow in through in a more specific way than our tutorials. So if that's interesting to you, go sign up and give it a try. You can get a free trial. So it lasts for a week. So wait a week and then get a free trial and you can come join us for the next live session. Awesome. And cheers.